Listen up, all fight fans and fitness junkies. You've been listening to me talk about Jocko Fuel for a while now, and if you've been waiting, the wait is over. This August, you can score a massive 30% off on all of Jocko Fuel's top-tier supplements. That's right, 30% off. Jocko Fuel is loaded with all of the good stuff and none of the bad. We're talking no added sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and absolutely no gray area or banned substances. Just pure, clean fuel to power your performances. And guys, I really want you to try some of my favorites like Jocko Go and Jocko Hydrate. This deal is only going to be available for the month of August. So use code CHAEL30 or go to JockoFuel.com. Don't wait. Fuel up with Jocko Fuel and crush your goals. Guys, click on the link below to make it happen. Conor McGregor had done an interview, and I appreciated it. He was at a bare-knuckle boxing event, which, the way the marketing gimmick goes is he is now a partner and or owner. And a very good angle. It's a very good angle. De La Hoya would do that with Mosley and Bernard Hopkins. So, but don't ask the question, hey, how much did they, how big of a check did they write to buy in? To buy that 1% that they had, how big was the check? Like, don't ask that question. But if you take that out, you got a good story here. And Conor's up there. And I really appreciated it. I have met this Conor every time we're one-on-one. And he is very likable. And he is very measured. He is very calm. And he is not attention-seeking. Now, the difference about when I have been around that Conor one-on-one, there was no camera. He did not have to worry that I was going to go out and tell people what he was a guy. He was not performing. When the camera's on, it was a very rare glimpse into Conor McGregor, the person. Because he dropped the act. His voice was different. His tone, his cadence was different. I liked it. I thought it was a really interesting and refreshing piece. And Conor went as far as to say, and don't forget, guys, maybe I took for granted you know this. This was done only hours after the announcement of Chandler versus Oliveira. So Conor lets us in on the fact that he didn't know. He let us in on the fact that, no, this does not mean I am fighting somebody else and have moved on from Chandler. I am not fighting. Which is why Chandler needed a new opponent. Conor's the one that let us in on this. As a matter of fact, and this was the big one. This is when you realize, hey, we're getting a shoot right here. Set him out of the loop. Set him out of the loop, which is a really nice and non-embarrassing way of saying my phone calls aren't getting picked up and or returned. In fact, he went further with that to say that he has reached out to Sheikh Turkey, how do you say it? For assistance. That's an exact quote. To ask if he could assist me here. If he could just talk to the, you're going to be with them. I'm like, would you ask them for me? It was a very interesting thing. And when you're in this spot of humility, which he was. And it was so refreshing. And then he said a few things, scratching my head and going, now wait a second, what? And one of those things is Conor wanted to do a co-promote. He wanted bare-knuckle boxing in conjunction with McGregor Sports and Entertainment to be able to do a co-promote and for the UFC to allow him to do that. And I'm adding a lot of words to what Conor said. There's a couple of times where I said, and this is what Conor said, just so you understand. There's some quotes that I'm giving, and then some other thing I'm trying to explain to you what he said. I'm trying to explain to you what he said without actually quoting him. And the reason that Conor was interested in a co-promote with McGregor Sports and Entertainment and bare knuckle boxing, and the reason he wanted UFC to allow him to do it is because he's under an exclusive combat contract with the UFC. No, he's not, but that's another day. And he said, I like to stay busy. I got to stay busy. And he's talking about going into training camps. And he's talking about having a fight. He's talking about having a goal. He's talking about having a purpose. And these are very real things. And Volkanovski let us in on all of those things, but Volk went further as to tell you why it was important. Before Volk, BJ Penn let us in on these things. But BJ Penn took the risk of telling you why in his personal life that was really important. Conor didn't do that, but frankly, he didn't owe it to us. Volk and BJ didn't owe it to us, but boy, it was compelling, wasn't it? And it was such a dynamic spot that when I'm hearing Conor say these things, I'm then also, at least to a degree, able to guess why his phone calls aren't getting returned. Not for nothing. If you're talking about doing a carve-out, just so you guys understand, okay, that would be like an amendment. Think of to the Constitution. That's probably where you hear the word the most, is through the news, right, in that regard. If you're talking about getting lawyers or you're talking about changing anything within a contract that's already done, that's not the phone call that gets returned. And I don't know that Conor's bullish on this. I don't know that that must be done. He also said that he has 2 fights left on his UFC contract. But I'm sharing for you, I'd have a hard time imagining how or why Conor is not, as he put it, in the loop. How and why he found out that his opponent that is for 2 years has got another contract, thus voiding the one that he has. And he had to find that in the media. I'm just having a hard time. I could give you some pretty good guesses, but most of those guesses would be for the whole. They would be broad strokes. There are some very nice liberties taken for that one being Conor McGregor. However, if you're having ideas that are anything, and this is before I inform you, right? This is before we get into the whole thing that there is no such thing as McGregor Sports and Entertainment. Like before we go down that road, the money team and Francis Ngannou had one. Before we get into the weirdness of that, we do have to understand there's already a contract here. If there's anything attempting to be changed, there would be a resistance in that phone call. But where we were at with McGregor a week ago, we the audience, from what we were told. But hey, we were only a month off. We were a month and a city off. UFC wanted Los Angeles in January. We had the McGregor, we had the opponent Chandler, we had the weight class at 170, we had the rounds at 5. McGregor wanted all of those same things, but he wanted it in Vegas. That's important to Conor. And there really is nothing quite like fighting in Vegas, particularly when your audience and your crowds, as over as McGregor, are coming from somewhere else. Those people are not, the same numbers aren't, not even a fraction of them could be expected to go to Los Angeles. So it's very different. And so therefore it's very important to Conor. Fine. But can we agree that we're pretty close? Pretty close now. And where does that go? Why has this fallen apart? Did I misunderstand Conor just a little bit? If he's looking for carve-outs or he's looking to bring in, it wouldn't go hand in hand. I think Conor's sincere. I'm falling for it, guys. I think that he's sincere, that he truly will fight anybody. I don't think there's any truth to any of the narrative that he flinched because it was Chandler. I don't believe that at all. As a matter of fact, I don't even believe that has changed. I believe if Conor comes back, which is extremely unlikely and already rumored to be as soon as June of next year, which is just completely ridiculous that we would even talk about, but it's still Chandler. Like Chandler versus Oliveira would have no impact on McGregor returning against Chandler in June of the following year. So he needs an assist. He needs an assist from the Sheik. And I'll give him that assist. That's the only part I gotta know. And I do have to know. Are we honoring the contract that we have in its entirety? Period and the end. You just need a date. Is that where we're at? Or are we talking about changing the contract? Are we living in Crazyville with McGregor Sports? Like, are we doing those things? Because they are two very different conversations. One, I cannot help with, but neither can the Sheik.